This is Gary Butterfield.
This is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Unfilmable, the Patreon bonus podcast where we look at how Lovecraft has been adapted to the screen.
Yep, and this month we are talking about the film From Beyond, directed by Stuart Gordon in 1986 and adapted from the extremely short story of the same name.
Yeah. And he filled in all of the cracks with boners and hard-ons. And schlongos,
yep.
And any other terms you want to use for a big erect dick.
Yeah.
Filling in the cracks, baby.
This is, I think I saw you either in Slack or on Twitter, you called this uncommonly horny. That is absolutely true. In a way that is very lurid, but also very enjoyable.
Yes. The horny content in this, I think, works. In part because it is equally interested in like, hey, Barbara Crampton looks pretty good in this fucking getup, right?
Yeah.
Also, here's the grossest thing you've ever seen in your goddamn life. Like right afterwards is the most disgusting. It is a really simultaneously attractive and repulsive movie,
right?
That is also wild as hell as far as the plot.
Yeah. And in a weird way, it doesn't necessarily feel gratuitous because it is motivated by the villain. And of course it was the writer's choice. There are like 3 writers attached to this, 3 or 4. It was their choice to make it as horny as it is, but there is justification built in a way that almost makes this a terrible Lovecraft adaptation, because the people who made this movie love sex, while Lovecraft was terrified of it.
Yeah. Even though, like, it's funny. So I saw this movie. They debuted the director's cut, which I did not watch for this viewing. Right. But at the Lovecraft Film Festival. See, it's already happening to me. Somebody pushed on the horny machine in the apartment, and it's activating my dick in my brain, and it's made me say festival. So I saw Stuart Gordon do a Q&A, and he talked about it, and somebody asked him about the sex in his Lovecraft adaptations. Because Dagon, which is a movie we'll definitely get to, is a little bit more sexual than Shadow over Innsmouth is. And he said to him that stuff has always been there. It's just that's what he feels like Lovecraft was adapting. Like, yes, his fear of brown people, but also all of these like squamous wet holes and pulsating tubers and stuff like that. Like he always felt that sex was like really a big part of the writing and the stories and stuff. And I don't necessarily know that I agree with that, but it is an interpretation that is like not 100% without merit. Right. Like it's an interpretation. I feel like it's arguable even if I don't buy the argument.
Yeah.
And he's not alone in doing that. Alan Moore's Lovecraft stuff also emphasizes that stuff. And he said something similar where it's like every time he's read Lovecraft, he's felt like the sexual element was really textual and not subtextual. Yeah.
And I would agree. I would agree with that. It is there for Lovecraft. It feels like, if you read any of these stories and don't see monstrous vaginas on every page, I think that is a failure of imagination, on your part. And I am exaggerating on that regard. Here it is celebrated in a way that does not feel like him, and that's fine.
Right. And yeah, it's just the sex part isn't scary. Yeah. Like in this, it's like it is scary because of everything else that's happening. But it's not. It's even a different interpretation of sexual Lovecraft than like Alan Moore does. Yeah. Where the sex is terrifying, and in his work, here the sex itself is not terrifying. All this other stuff that's happening, along with the sex is terrifying.
That
it's
is
just
like
kind of
twisted in with it.
Yeah. So it's interesting at the very least. Like it is an interesting interpretation, even outside of being a Lovecraft thing. Though it is just like a wild and fun movie that has really amazing practical effects and is sincerely unpredictable as a movie.
Yep.
I feel like that's something that I love watching. If I watch a B movie or I watch like a quote unquote bad movie, that's a big reason I'm watching them. Because it's like, oh, this is not going to follow the rules. Yeah, like
there is if you watch a good movie that is made by somebody who just understands the film, they're probably going to fall into a couple of different lanes. Whereas you've got Stuart Gordon over here just off-roading in a dune buggy.
Swerving wildly through a cornfield.
Yeah.
Masturbating and cackling. Just like... And it's great.
Yeah.
Like it's you know, it just really works.
Yeah. And we're making like a distinction between good movies and bad movies, and something that should be realized, you know, by anybody who is listening to or participating in you know, media criticism. Different kinds of good, different kinds of bad. We are calling this a bad movie because it is lurid and schlocky.
It's a B movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's very specifically like, it's like a cult movie. It's that kind of thing.
But when we say bad, that is not to mean we think it is not worth your time.
No, I think this is a good movie.
Yes, like, it is incredibly good.
But like, you don't recommend it to the same person you recommend like Schindler's List to.
Right.
You know, it's not a good movie the same way The Wire is good.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is based on a short story. It was made in 1934, and as we mentioned, that's very short. It is. We've talked about From Beyond on our Lovecraft Bonfireside chat thing. It is my go-to recommendation for Lovecraft stuff because it's 7 pages. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to read, and it gets across a lot of great concepts.
Yeah.
And it is about a scientist who kind of tortures his friend. He creates this device that stimulates the pineal gland, which shows them these extradimensional creatures that overlap with our own plane and are everywhere.
Yes.
And that happens in this. Like this story contains that story.
Mm-hmm. It is a jumping off point, though, you know, into something that is very motivated by this Dr. Pastorius here, who, you know, has his own kind of sexual obsessions that, you know, kind of drives this plot. So it takes those very basic kind of ideas and, you know, makes more of a story out of it, giving structure to a story that otherwise would just be a scene. From Beyond is remarkable because it is a scene with like a, you know, a chiller sentence at the end. They never found the bodies. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Like it's something that's a very it gets adapted as a short film a lot because it's relatively easy to do, surprisingly, to do kind of convincing versions of it, and it is so short. Yeah. So this is, you know, if one of those people was a huge pervert, and then other stuff happened. Yep. Like they also just like, you know, there's like a B-side to this movie, like like the last third of it is just very different.
I forgot about the last third of this fucking movie. I thought that it ended well before it did.
Yeah. No, we go back there, but there's a whole hospital scene where it becomes like a monster movie in a different way that is just sublime.
Yeah.
So a big reason why this is so good is because of the special effects.
Right.
This doesn't get brought up a lot in the same way that, say, like The Thing does. But these are wonderful practical effects. The climax of this movie is legitimately disgusting and amazing.
Yep.
As a feat of practical effects work.
Yeah. There is an inventiveness on display here that is a thing to behold.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it just it plays into very effectively into body horror.
No.
In a way that matches its themes, right? Like the idea that this is about this thing that kind of activates your horny gland is very much like placing you in a body.
Yeah.
And this, you know, it wants to mess around in that space. Like here is the way that the body is attractive and wonderful and, you know, miraculous. And here is the way the body is just like absolutely terrifying and grotesque and the worst. You know,
something that is really remarkable about it too is that it is incredibly cohesive visually, in a way that shows, you know, them exercising a weird amount of tact, like the color palette and just generally the nature of the monstrosities that are shown. You know, you can look at like an out of context scene and know like, oh, that's from Beyond. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the pinkish purple cast to everything, and because of, you know, something that feels like, you know, a 5 years later leveled up version of the melting bubblegum monsters from The Thing. Yeah. Along with some incredibly good late 80s, like, you know, in camera visual effects, showing these overlaps, and just overlays of the monsters coming in. Yeah.
Also, I'll go to bat for the performances in this movie.
Yep.
This is kind of B horror ringers, who are in this. So Jeffrey Combs, who has and Barbara Crampton, who have a history with Stuart Gordon. Like he originally wanted to make a series of Lovecraft movies with the same actors and crew. And he talks about that in interviews. Like the reason why is he's like, I know I'm going to ask these people to do really strange things, and it will be easier to get them to go along with it quicker if they know me,
right,
and trust me. And that's a really true thing, right? Because you imagine, like one of those like 101 level realizations when you're a kid is when you realize that films are not shot in order.
No.
And then the idea of just being like, okay, we're going to shoot the scene where Jeffrey here put on this prosthetic for like 3 hours and then you're going to suck the eyeball out of this person. Yep. And you just being like, okay, versus like, like just having somebody you trust. Jeffrey Combs is amazing. Like I love him. He's got a lot of, what's that guy who, Marty McFly's dad?
Oh, shit. I was going to say Crispin Glover. Is that
Crispin Glover?
Crispin Glover. Okay.
He's got Crispin Glover energy to me a little bit. Yeah. Of just kind of like weird and charismatic. Barbara Crampton does a great job with really weird material. And then Ken Faree from Dawn of the Dead is the other lead. And he's so charismatic and good.
He is incredibly good.
I love him.
I love every scene that he's in.
How does that explain the hard on I got? Fuck yeah, dude. Like, I love it. Like what a relaxed, fun delivery of that weird sentence.
And his death scene is legitimately one of the best things.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's really, really creepy.
Yeah.
And the exact line is, how about that hard on I got? Is there a statistical correlation for that too? Hell yeah, dude. Give it to me. Like
yeah. We are so fickle in terms of like what kind of and what amount of horny is acceptable in one of these things.
This is the one though. It
hits the intersection.
Here. Yeah, this is the Rosetta Stone of figuring out why this is good.
Yeah,
and something else that is horny is like not as good. And I think you touched on it earlier is that it's not like really gratuitous. It's part of the plot in a way, and it's not. It's very hard for me to think this movie is at any point is trying to be titillating.
Yeah.
Like maybe it is. There's one specific scene that seems like maybe it is, but the scene is still so fucked up and weird.
Yeah.
That it's like how sometimes in like Lynch movies, like somebody can look good, but you're also just like, I can't be horny at this. Like,
like
it feels like my testicles are sideways. Like it's weird.
Isabella Rossellini is a stunning woman. There is nothing about Blue Velvet that makes you feel good about feeling that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it just comes down to our wanting to feel bad from media. Like,
yeah.
If something tries to make me feel good, I am immediately suspicious and reject it.
Yeah.
If something tries to make me feel bad, I welcome it into my life with open arms,
Yeah.
And like, that's what this horniness is.
If you're going to give me a boner, make it a weird boner.
Yeah. Give me the strangest fucking boner.
I will take the strangest boner you have, please.
Yeah. Please, one strange boner, please.
Yeah.
Strange boner.
And as we're talking about the cast, I think that we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the performance of Ted Sorrell as Dr. Pretorius. Sure. I called him Pistorius before. He's not a bassist. He's just an actor kind of guy.
He's amazing in this as well.
Who has a look and a bearing that even in his basic human form at the beginning.
Yeah. And it is this like your absolute worst nightmare if you get invited to like a swingers party or an orgy. Like you get the address for an orgy and you go here and this guy opens the door.
Yep.
And it's like, oh no, it's text porno. Like it's we're all fucked now. Like, yeah, this is not going to be great, in this way that is just, he's got a presence.
Yeah.
To it. So he went on after this, the next movie that Stuart Gordon did, with this, he ended up doing Castle Freak, with the same cast and crew, and then some of the same cast and crew went on to Dagon and Dreams of the Witch House.
Yeah,
his movie that he did for the Masters of Horror. So it wasn't the entire. This Castle Freak was the last one that had the entire crew, but Jeffrey Combs is in Dagon. Like other people went on to move with him on some things. We are going to cover all that.
Yeah,
at some point. I can't imagine a world in which we don't do all the Stuart Gordon Lovecraft stuff.
Yeah,
for this because it's all good.
Yeah. So, and it makes sense, with Stuart Gordon's kind of history in theater, the idea of a repertory company, just, if we're going to be if we're going to be doing this stuff on the cheap, which they had to do, like they shot this in Italy specifically because of like cost of labor and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If we're going to be doing it, like we gotta be able to have as little stand up time as possible.
Yeah,
right?
Because otherwise they're not going to let us make movies like this.
Yeah,
and that's a real concern, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it kind of feels like a miracle the whole time you're watching this that it's extant.
That anybody said yes.
Yeah, like there's a series of successive yeses that result in From Beyond getting to the screen. Yeah. And it's great that they happened, and they happened a long time ago,
Yeah.
It's almost a weird thing where I could almost see it now. Like, I think we have more of a taste for this kind of like exploitive schlock stuff now.
Who's we? You and me specifically, or the culture at large?
The culture at large.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I see more movies that have this kind of wild out there-ness.
Yeah.
And it's easier to make a movie. Like, there's been democratization. Something can end up, on Netflix fairly easily for like a low budget. And that was maybe not always the case.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, like with this specifically, the idea of submitting any of this to the MPAA for a rating is very, very strange. And it's understandable why Castle Freak went directly to video, right? Just to avoid this process. I have no idea if this is literally true, but Stuart Gordon says when they submitted it, like they said, this has 10 times too much of everything, which is like, that's why it's good, dog.
Yeah. Yep. And luckily, like, he did not have to cut any scenes.
Right.
Like, it was like little trims. And I saw the unrated version. I saw the version with everything in the theater. I don't remember it being that different. I think that this is something where like the cut version is fine. Yeah. That's a weird secret in like all of the censorship like conversations and stuff that happen, is a lot of times it doesn't matter. Like, they're talking about when chuds are like, oh, I can't believe they cut this titty from this anime game, and it's like, well, if you play the anime game without the titty, I bet you'll be just as good. It's not going to matter.
That's the principle of the thing.
It's not the principle of the thing, but like, I know that's what they would say, but it's so dumb. Like, it's such a dumb stance. Principled stance without context are garbage, and you grow out of them. So let's get into it.
Do we want to talk about the reviews at all? Like, cause like you were talking about how this got reviewed a little bit better than people thought it would, than you thought it would.
Yeah, like it's they're kind of, they're wildly swingy. So some people really liked it, some people really didn't. The thing, but it was when people didn't like it, it was that it was too much.
Yeah.
And when people did like it, it was that it was too much.
Yes.
Right. So it's very dependent on personal taste, I think.
Yes.
And that goes for people listening to this too. Like, if the things we describe end up sounding too gross to you, and I assure you, they're like, some of the things in this movie are stomach churning, right? Then don't watch it. Yeah. And it's not even gore. Like, it's like, some of it is, but some of it is just like real gross, like wet latex monsters. Yeah.
Like just a biological geometry that should not be.
Yeah. A lot of dread. Like, kind of like the grotesque series of this movie.
Yeah.
A lot of body horror. But yeah, so it just kind of depended on what people thought of that.
Yeah. If you plan to watch this, I like to try and say this. It's not on iTunes, but you can rent it and buy it from Amazon digitally. That's how I ended up getting it. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. So we start off with a man who's Jeffrey Combs playing Crawford. He's in this room full of awesome 80s computer equipment.
Yep.
Powering things on slowly.
Yeah, with this kind of monolith in the center, the resonator, which feels like it is 3 different machines, any of which would be extremely cool, but all put together. It's got a good orb on it. It's got these tuning forks sticking out the top of it. And yeah, this is the thing that is going to stimulate the pineal gland, which they call the pineal gland, which is not the right way to say that. And it works. Like, he activates the computer, and he hits the right frequency, and he sees just these flying eels around him, these immaterial monstrosities.
So, and this is cool and scary and looks pretty good. Until one of them, when Crawford looks at it, flies at his face, becomes real, and is biting a huge hole in his cheek.
Yes.
Pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
And this is already a lot faster than the short story.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So
we have seen most of what happens in the short story at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the fun thing, looking at the IMDb goofs, I didn't notice this when I watched it because it doesn't matter. But the eel wound on his face changes sides constantly.
Yeah.
But anyway, he said, he turns off the machine and he goes to his boss, the head scientist, Edward Pretorius, who's in his bedroom. We're going to see the bedroom later, but he appears wearing nothing but a robe that is open to reveal a magnificent thicket of chest hair. Yeah, just a salt and pepper carpet of man.
And he answers the call exactly like Crawford is going to immediately fall to his knees and start sucking him off.
Yes,
like the stance and kind of posture is very expectant.
Yeah.
Like, I've got cum and you need to take it from me now.
Yes.
Please get this out of here.
We need to figure.
What are we going to do with all this cum?
We need to figure out what this dick do. And we're both scientists.
Yeah, dick. Who got the dick? Dick's everywhere. Dick's full of hair. Like, let's do it. So it just he looks. What the pose is exactly like the posture is when Dana when Zool answers the door when Peter Venkman goes there in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
When she shows up and like the wind is blowing her hair and she's got the makeup. Mm-hmm. It's exactly like that except for like a gross swinging uncle.
Yeah. He's got strong Pretorius at this point has strong Alfred Molina and Boogie Nights energy.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly that. Pretty amazing. And they turn on the machine, as we mentioned, and he's ranting.
Yes.
About it. We're already past the point in which like science has made him insane.
Right.
And will not turn off the resonator. Coombs is begging for him to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But he shan't.
Right. And this is creating just a lot of light and a lot of noise. And we cut over to one of my favorite classic horror tropes, the out of context old woman who is a nosy gossip.
Yeah.
Calling the cops.
Yep. Unknown from the King collection.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. She is calling the cops, and she's got this little dog that sees the lights and rushes over into the mansion. So she walks in to this super science area and into the radius of the resonator, looking for her little dog bunny.
Mm-hmm. In the mansion, similar to like weirdly this happened in the 11th hour as well, which we did for WAF. I'm glad you noticed the flags because there's a Snaky flag, there's a Gadsden flag, there's a weird like original 13 colonies flag.
Yeah,
like just the set designer was just like, where does this movie take place? The Italian set designer.
Yeah,
it was like America, and then just went to the America section of the flag store and just like grabbed a pack of 5 and put them up. You know. It's very strange.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, is Pretorius hyper patriotic? Like, I don't get it.
I don't know.
That's a pretty loaded symbolism.
He could be that like kind of 70s patriotic, like that Spirit of 76 bicentennial patriotic.
Oh yeah, the tall ships really raised the spirits after Watergate.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
like that, yeah. So and during this, like Pretorius, like something's coming.
Yes,
like something big is coming that we have not seen.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, like in this movie is like what it it has for restraint we never see.
Yeah,
the big thing that eventually does take Pretorius.
Yeah,
and change him into like Super Pretorius, which we'll get to. Yeah. We never see. Right. We see a lot of monsters in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But something's coming.
I was going to say that's pulled from the story because, like, in the story, our point of view character notices the eels and notices the jellyfish, is like, oh my god, this is horrifying. And the mean scientist and the mean scientist is like, oh, there are much worse, more powerful things that are beyond your comprehension. It is pulling that aspect to it. But yeah, in the meantime, that is coming, and to get away from it, Crawford shinings through the door with an axe. It is literally the same shot from The Shining with, Bunny in the corner by the door as the axe comes through. It is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, like clearly, or not clearly, but perhaps some kind of homage.
Yes. Yeah.
Who can tell?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happens. And then he runs out of the mansion, gets arrested. Yes. The woman is screaming. She's trying to leave the mansion. And Pretorius's head is there. Bunny licks it inside.
Well, Pretorius's head is not there specifically.
Oh yeah,
his body is laying on the floor, and
his headless body.
Yes, and Bunny is looking at the stump.
Yeah.
And then we get the credits sequence, which has some amazing graphic design on it. I love the text, the pink and yellow text that's over the blue filtered choppy footage of the writhing mealworms.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So we are now we're introduced to our new character. So Crawford Killinghast has been locked away, and this doctor, Catherine McMichaels, comes to examine him. And she looks on. There's this whole kind of back and forth between her and the doctor. Like, I've read your work. Like, if so, you understand that I don't think that we should lock up people who are schizophrenic. Yeah. We should try to cure them. There's a little bit of that kind of undercurrent. And he's like, can I see this new patient? With this other doctor who's constantly smoking, which is very distracting.
Yeah.
And she goes through her like Hannibal Lecter, asylum walk to check out all the different crazies, including the naked man who's jerking off. Which would, as far as ways to go insane in a classical 80s movie, jerking off all the time would not be so bad.
I mean, he seems to be having a good time. Like he's
having a great time.
Like everybody else wants to be saved, and he's like, nah, I'm fine. I'm fine right here.
I've never had that good of a time jerking off as this dude's having. Not to make light of mental health issues, but like,
no.
It's just, if you have to choose, choose the one that like has you constantly jerking off.
Yeah, it's fine.
I definitely, like, when I was younger, I had times where I jerked off too much.
Well, yeah, that is a hard. It's a hard learned lesson.
Jan Icarus. To be young, to fly too close to the cum.
But she goes and she finds Crawford, who is relatively compared to the people that we've seen, but he is speaking not in a raving manner, but he is speaking with anxiety and fear about what he has seen, talking about the way the resonator works by activating the pineal gland, this third eye, right? And they bring it up, and they even say like, oh, some people thought it was the third eye, etc. Thing from the story. Obviously, Lovecraft just kind of like read about the pineal gland and the theories around it and said, yeah, make a story.
Yeah, it was kind of scientific. It was sciencey.
Yes.
At the time.
Yes.
Really, really. So they're talking about, Crawford is talking about what happened. Here he mentions this resonator, and he says, and that he had to destroy it because it came, and there's this great delivery where he's like, and bit off his head like a gingerbread man.
The camera gets right up in his face, and he almost spits on it.
It's super good. Like, Jeffrey Combs is amazing.
Yeah.
He's really, really good in Reanimator. That'll be a fun one. Yeah. And Catherine is like, okay, pituitary gland, let's run a CAT scan.
Yeah.
And the smoking doctor's like, what's the point? At any point, she's like, no science.
Yeah.
He's crazy. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And Crawford does not want to deal with this because even though he's a man of science, he just doesn't want to be near this machine.
Yeah.
Because
machines have done him wrong, but Catherine is going to subject him to all this because, she says, oh, there's always more to say. Using the machines to image this, to see things. Yeah. So they take him in and they say, oh yeah, like his pineal gland is actually, it's growing. It is kind of intersected with the optical lobe. And that probably explains the hallucinations. It probably explains, why he is coming across as unbalanced. Dr. Block is her name, the smoking doctor.
Reference to Robert Block.
Yeah. The Nurse Ratched figure is like, well, okay, it's just a tumor. So, but Yahtzee, we know what's happening. And Catherine, for science, she wants to take him and basically redo the experiment.
Yes. And this idea of kind of like it's real weird what her motivations are.
Yeah.
In this, like, part of it is like, so he can overcome his fear, like treating it psychologically. But part of it, one of the more Lovecrafty things in this whole bit is this idea of like being tempted by dark science or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And they tie that into your ding dong or your click clit in this movie. Like, it's like you're tempted by dark science by the knowledge, but also it's literally a biological yearn.
Yes.
For it, and that's kind of beginning here. Like, Catherine as a character kind of embodies that, even though it happens to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the police chief agrees. She can take him. She releases Crawford into her custody, but sends along one of his men.
Right.
Which is where you introduced Bubba, who is played by Ken Foree, who is great. Just like has a charismatic physicality to him.
Yeah.
That I really love. At the end of his first scene, he takes a huge bite out of an apple, like an uncommonly large bite.
Yep.
And I love that. Like it's just very like he is just fun to have on screen. He makes some bomb ass looking dumplings later.
Yep.
Like I love everything about Bubba. So
even though those dumplings do look like brains.
I would eat the shit out of those dumplings, dude. Like I was just like, that looks, how do I make that?
But yeah, so they go back to the house, which again, just if you wanted to sum up this movie, it is on 666 Benevolent Street.
Yeah, it's benevolent. Dun dun dun.
But the house, I love the design of the house. It's spooky, but not like in a Victorian Gothic kind of way. You know, it's not an Addams Family house. But like the front on shot as you make the approach, it looks kind of like three houses in a row. It looks very unnatural.
Yeah. It reminds me of the house in House. A little bit.
The Doctor show?
House. No, the movie House.
I don't know that I've seen the movie House.
Oh, you gotta see House.
Oh, okay.
There's no reason to do it for this show, but House is a good classic old horror movie. The cover is very iconic. It's a disembodied hand putting a key in a door. Like, and it looks very scary stories to tell in the dark.
Nice.
Like the hand, it's really great.
Yeah.
So it's good. Like it is a creepy looking house. As they're going in, they're kind of seeing this, these cables and stuff, these electrical cables, this evidence of machinery, and Crawford runs away.
Yeah.
Because he's not happy about this.
No.
He does not want to go back to the house. They run up. Catherine and Bubba kind of run upstairs to go
after they turn on the electricity. Yeah.
Yeah, after they turn on the electricity downstairs, or rather, Catherine goes up there. Bubba had already gone up there, and Catherine hears sex, like whipping sounds,
whipping,
BDSM
screaming,
sounds,
all of that. Yeah,
and they see that Bubba is standing in front of this VCR in Pretorius's BDSM room, playing a video of him whipping a woman.
Yes,
and he's like, this guy was into some freaky shit.
Yeah.
In that classic Bubba delivery.
Yes. And Catherine's like, I really don't care about his private life. Like we're here for his science, not understanding that they are very deeply linked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, this is just a full on, it's got all that equipment, like the brackets and the, just, I don't know.
Straps.
Straps, things like that. I'm revealing my ignorance. But yes, it
bracket.
is
sex brackets.
Sex brackets. Immediately.
Who's gonna win? Orgasm takes it again.
But they go up to the attic, and what is very funny is Pretorius's chalk outline is there, and the head is just a stone.
It's like I think they actually do that in real life.
Yeah,
but I think it ends up it's kind of funny here.
Yeah.
And Crawford shows up with an axe, and they kind of play it like he's going to hit Catherine with it. So Bubba kind of tackles him, and he explains, like, no, that's what I used to destroy the machine. I knocked a fork off of it.
Yeah.
To stop it from working, we have to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they set about to work, but they've got to they got to sleep, and of course they have to stay in the spooky house. They can't rent a hotel.
Yeah.
It's one of the more strange decisions, I think.
Yeah, just stay in the science house.
Yeah. So they're getting to work. Bubba notices that Crawford is admiring, sleeping Catherine, who fell asleep at the desk. And Crawford talks about what Pretorius would do, how he would bring beautiful women home, to the house and feed them good food, and they would listen to music, and ultimately it would end with the women
with them screaming. Yeah. You'd bring them over and make them scream.
Right. And Crawford would basically just like lay there and listen.
Yeah.
And you can tell like he really, really resents his old boss, because he's saying, 5 senses wasn't enough for him. He wanted more. That was why he was performing this dark magic research.
In a weird way, like when we talk about how, so Crawford in this, and like in every Lovecraft story and in all of the Stuart Gordon adaptations, there's a Lovecraft stand-in. And Crawford kind of is that in this, and he is the sex repulsed author, right? So like Stuart Gordon has taken the subtext and built it up into being super text with all the sex stuff, but there is still this kind of sex repulsed character. Like at some point Coombs is kind of interested in her and kind of makes out with her, but he's always the force for, hey, we need to stop this.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately it is giving in to those sexual desires that fucks everything up.
Yeah.
You know, the movie is not sex positive, even though it is very sexual. You know, so it's I think it still kind of represents that Lovecraft anti-sex feeling pretty well.
Yeah,
just through one character.
But you know, Crawford explains like, hey, you know, just I figured out a workaround. Even though I destroyed it, we can get it back on. It's just on and off, and it's on this switch. And he turns it on, and the facial acting. That happens here, specifically Barbara Crampton's facial acting. Like you can just tell like, oh, she is horned up.
Yeah. Just be horny, but just with your face. Yes. And she does a killer job with it.
Yeah. And Crawford himself just gets uncomfortable, whereas Bubba is more fascinated by the creatures that appear, including a jellyfish that appears and just kind of takes a bite out of his wrist.
Yeah, like wraps around his arm, and they're not turning it off at this point because there's this compelling kind of One Ring like nature to having the machine on. Like it not only, you know, it probably feels good. It doesn't just like horn you up. It probably feels good.
Yeah.
You know, so they still don't even turn this on until eventually Pretorius shows up.
Yeah.
He's there and he's naked. And he's like really, really Vaselined up.
Yeah, he is slimy. You know, not necessarily transformed yet. And he appears, his voice seems to come from everywhere. What has happened is the creature that ate him, basically he took over as its personality. Yeah. You know, and he is manifesting in a form that they'll be familiar with, but this is the most human he is going to be from this point forward.
And it's Pretorius is still in there.
Yeah.
Right. So like he took over, but it's not like a total swapperoo. Like he still has Pretorius's like predilections. He makes references to his past and stuff like that. Yeah, so it is like a combination. You know?
Yeah. He says, you know, hey, Crawford, come over here. Touch me to confirm that I'm real. And Crawford grabs his shoulder. And
this is so good.
I want to know how they did this. Like what material?
Well, they put a bunch of dough over his shoulder, but it looks good. You know, it's by showing all of his, like, it's like a magician's trick by like having all of his flesh be Vaselined up. They were able to hide these like shoulder mounts that he gave him. But because it looks very real, like he looks like it's just a guy, but when he puts his hand on his shoulder, his fingers sink in like it's dough.
Yes,
like he just touched pizza dough, and it's so fucking unnerving.
Yeah, I mean, it gets into that Junji Ito body as plastic.
There's kind of tons of Junji Ito in this movie. Yeah, like I would be very curious if Junji Ito saw this. Yeah, like the climax of this, the thing that happens with the body as plastic thing, is very Junji Ito.
Yes,
and then you're like, oh, that's fucking gross, but like kind of subtle. Then Pretorius pulls his face off, and there are like little crawling like worm, like little bits of it, like muscles that are retracting.
Yeah,
like on it, and it's goddamn grotesque.
He pulls his face off and almost reveals like a Giger-esque like substructure geometry to his face.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the muscle structure, but it's
more ribbed.
Pinker and more ribbed. Like it's very gross.
Yeah.
And he's talking at this point, and he never loses his delivery. Doesn't change. He doesn't get like monster voice. You know, and the performance is really great. And he's just like, this is just a body, but my mind is indivisible. Bodies just change. And fuck, man.
Yeah.
Like, what is going to happen? Like, this is good and scary. Yeah. He's starting to change into something, but Bubba shoots at him, and then Crawford deactivates the resonator, which makes him disappear.
Right. Yeah. I love Crawford's line, and specifically delivery. That will be quite enough of that.
Yeah, he's very good. Bubba throws up. Everyone is pretty unnerved by this. Not the unnerved way that you would think where you'd leave.
Right. Yeah, I know. They're not like we can't be in the same room as this or the same zip code. Everyone is unnerved, but Catherine is exhilarated.
Yeah.
Like she sees the possibility in this, and she's hooked. Right.
Yeah.
You know, she talks about like, oh my God, like it has complete molecular control over the body. And over Pretorius's mind, she is not as afraid of this as she should be.
Yeah. Because again, and no one is, you know, Bubba is a voice of reason. Crawford is kind of a voice of reason during this, but like it must feel good, right? Like everyone's at least a little bit addicted. Catherine, obviously, most of all.
Right.
And
they talk about the sexual effects. This is where we get the awesome line about the statistical correlation of the boner.
Yeah, is there a statistical coordination to my hard-on? Which I gotta start bringing hard-on back. Like that is a good descriptive term for a boner.
Yeah, no. So I feel like PUD is almost back. I feel like we need to, with like that can finish of its own momentum. Hard-on needs to. How
about referring to a penis as a dork? Can we bring that back?
Do we take dork back?
My dork's got a hard-on. That sounds like you're talking to one of your buddies.
Yeah.
That sounds like you're introducing your buddy to a stripper before a lap dance. But it's just like time to wrap up my dork so I don't get any mini-me's. Something like that. Like, I don't know. I feel like we got to bring these terms back.
Yeah. No, just dredge up these antiquated terms. Regardless, Catherine, she is playing at science at this point still. She is, addicted, but is trying to justify it with, academia, a thin glaze of academia. She's saying like, I wonder if this is actually a correlation, if all schizophrenics have an enlarged pineal gland. And she wants to continue these experiments, and she offers a kind of an excuse saying, "Oh, my dad, he was schizophrenic, and he, died in an institution because of the barbaric treatment, and because we just don't know what's going on." And so she feels like she can basically save him in retrospect.
Yeah. Or just like, this would be a huge breakthrough, right? Like if schizophrenia was a physical cause rather than, and this is predicated on the idea that no one has ever done a CAT scan on a schizophrenic,
right?
Like it's pretty fucked up. But in the fiction, if you're doing the buy-in in the fiction of the movie, this would be huge. Mm-hmm. If there was like a medical treatment for this and it wasn't a disease of the mind. Mm-hmm. And there are medical treatments and stuff that don't have any, like I understand. Yeah. But just in the fiction, there's a certain amount of buy-in of on the other side of the scale. Like, yes, she's addicted to she has it's the one ring kind of pulling her. But it's not entirely out of the realm of possibility, the justification she makes.
Right.
Yeah. So they don't want to do it. Bubba's like, we're leaving tomorrow. Yeah. Which like leave today.
Yeah, cars. It's not a solar car.
Work. Yeah. It's cars work, man. You had to wait for the train. Get out of there. But because they stay another night, Catherine tries to sleep, but she's too horned up. She goes up to the attic to turn on the machine by herself, which is like the worst idea. Mm-hmm. Crawford notices, tries to stop her, but she's too addicted, and she starts making out with him.
Right.
And he like gives in a little bit, but he's also trying to stop.
Yeah.
As well. And they find out, and then they're observed by Pretorius, who is summoned by the machine.
Yes, Pretorius appears as a bubblegum man.
Yes,
he's almost
and there's a reveal. It like only shows half of his face, and then he turns over to be like the chewed up bubblegum.
He turns around to one side of him, has about 40% too much mass appended to it.
Yes,
it's almost like a a tyrant kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Crawford's like, Edward, my God, what did you become? And he says, myself.
Yeah. Way into it at this point.
Yes.
Super creepy.
And he says, hey, you can join me forever. Both Catherine and Crawford. It's great here.
Yeah. It's probably not.
No.
And Crawford is just like, he's really put off by this. He can't, for some reason, he can't turn off the machine here.
Yeah.
I couldn't quite get this.
Neither did I.
So Crawford decides to turn off the circuit breaker in the basement, maybe because he thinks Catherine will stop him.
Right.
And Pretorius starts transforming, and starts like kind of rubbing up Catherine, and Catherine at this point has realized her mistake.
Yeah.
Because he's clearly like a wet tumor monster.
Yeah. It's a tumor monster who has fascinated her into an incredibly vulnerable position, and he is feasting his senses on her. Like he transforms his hand into
this finger thing.
He everlongs his hand and starts fondling her breast as he begins kind of this head transformation in order to do this kiss on her to devour her head.
Yeah, he says like, I'm going to kiss you, and then this other head kind of comes out of his head that has this gross alien mouth. Like it kind of has to be seen to be believed. Like we're describing it in words, but it's a lot.
And just like if you're trying to picture it, like any number of these transformations, when they happen, it is almost always by the new piece erupting out of an orifice. There's an awful lot of childbirth imagery going on here. Which I don't know, like, even though that is a miracle, etc., blah, 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 human life. Yeah, it's horrifying.
Yeah.
Like,
it's freaking disgusting. We watched a video of it in a health class in high school, and just like, oh,
yeah, which the way it was shot, it was not necessarily to like inform us about it was done as a deterrent.
Yeah, don't let this happen to you.
Yeah,
like, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So there's kind of this kind of back and forth business with Bubba where he's like runs upstairs, then runs downstairs, and then he runs upstairs to get a knife. He forgets he has a gun. And we're like, you're a cop, etc. It's kind of goofy, but it ends up ending with Crawford and Bubba. They're in a basement that is flooded. We don't know exactly how it flooded, but there's this like worm monster down there, and they are trying to get past it to get to the circuit breaker. It's this whole kind of combat scene there. And as Crawford is being eaten, so is Catherine.
Right.
At this point, as Bubba eventually makes his way past the worm to shut off the breaker.
Yes. And Catherine, she was standing on her own 2 feet, and she is saved as Pretorius fades away. Crawford was not necessarily so lucky. He was, mostly through the process of being eaten, and he falls to the floor, now bald and pale.
Yeah. Wait, doesn't that happen? I think that happens later. That's the next time he gets eten, right?
No, it's this one. Yeah.
He's not bald and pale when he goes and does the next attic scene.
I think he is.
Maybe because something definitely happens to him at this point. I'd have to see it again.
Yeah.
I watched it yesterday.
I watched it this morning.
Yeah, because I thought he got eaten twice, but we'll get to it.
Yeah. So Catherine's takeaway from this is that, all right, it's not that we need to get as far away from this as possible. It is that whoever activates it needs to be alone. Anybody else who's around is a distraction.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Yes.
Yeah. No, you're right. He is bald at this point. It's the other thing I was thinking of, the birth thing that happens to him later, because I associate bald him with him who's out of it.
Gooey. Yeah.
Yeah, him. But this is where it takes all his hair, and he's also got these veins all over his chest. Yeah. Like something has infected him, and it's not good.
Yes.
So she says, I have to be alone, and Bubba isn't here in this. He's like, I know this behavior. I've seen it on the streets. You may be a scientist, lady, but you're acting like a junkie.
Yep.
So she is addicted to the horn.
Yes. But it doesn't necessarily matter because the machine can turn itself on at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Using it's similar to the rat saving everyone in Avengers.
Yep.
Like it's just this weird little quinky dink thing.
Yep.
They're all packing up. Catherine is like looking through the BDSM equipment and is like interested in this, and starts rubbing her tit. So she's definitely like full on horned, cannot escape the horn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And cuts away to Bubba doing some stuff and cuts back. She has graduated into the full BDSM outfit. And she turns her attention to this unconscious Crawford who's been sleeping in the background and is kind of examining the marks on his body as she starts to mount him. Yeah, she mounts him, and it's like, Barbara Crampton looks good in this outfit, but she's on top of this weird, like, bald, veiny, unconscious man who got at this point you're led to be impregnated by some kind of like weird alien worm. Like, it is not meant to look good. No.
Right? Like it's doing that push and pull that we appreciate with the horn.
Mm-hmm. So Bubba walks in and, basically tells her to snap out of it. Like he turns to a mirror and points like, look at yourself. Is this who you are? And she says, I don't know who I am. And like, at this point you'd be like, there's nothing wrong with indulging in this stuff, but for God's sake, time and place, woman.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, like Bubba's onto it, right?
Yeah.
Like this is not natural. It's not like, oh yes, queen, like express your sexuality, like own it. Something unnatural is happening here.
Right.
Is like like Pretorius is canceled.
Yes.
It's so
right. Yeah. So right here though, the machine reactivates. They feel the hum.
Electricity, like it shows it, like electricity kind of zaps to the power. The handle and just turns itself on.
Mm-hmm. So. And, there is just kind of this incorporeal force that stops anybody from trying to turn it off. Like Bubba goes up and it shocks him. It shocks him when he pulls out his gun. He tries to cut the cabling with an axe, but the force just holds the blade where it can conduct the electricity. All the while, Catherine and Crawford are being swarmed by bees.
Like super bees.
Yeah.
Like interdimensional alien from beyond bees.
Yep.
Not regular bees. At this point. And the bees, it's very telling. This is kind of like a little bit of sloppy, weird blocking, is that the bees don't see Bubba. So you can do this. So Bubba's trying all these things. He gets shocked, but he's fine. Tries to cut the cable, but the axe gets held in place to be a conduit. So the electricity continues. Bubba ends up throwing away this flashlight, but the flashlight puts the light on him, which sends the bees at him.
Right.
And he's eaten alive by these bees down to the bone in a way that's like very similar to one of the deaths in Day of the Dead.
No.
Where like it's just him, you know, he's like most of his flesh is gone. There's bones and stuff rotting, and he's just kind of, he doesn't say anything at this point. It's not like my lungs are gone, but I'm still gonna give my last words. Like he's just kind of grunting at this point. It's very disturbing. And kind of gross as his body is melted.
Yeah. It looks like it's burnt, it's pitted, and, you know, like his head is still there. Like he is looking down and, you know, is bewildered by the state of himself as he as he fades. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yep.
Here lies Bubba, devoured by bees.
Yep, I miss Bubba.
No. So at this point, Crawford spots Pretorius, who is here. He is hunched and lanky, and he has gone full on like long neck with his face at the end of the proboscis kind of deal. And he does the whole, you know, kiss me, my dear. And saying like, oh, you know, when he eats her, their minds will merge. And this is a little bit of his whole deal. This is what he was inviting them to before. The greatest sensual pleasure there is to completely devour somebody's mind.
Yeah. And have our minds meet.
Yes.
You know, it's like super sex.
Right.
You know, it's this weird thing. And as this is happening, Crawford looks on. Crawford seems like he's about to do something, but he grabs his head in pain.
Yes. You know.
And he is like a hybrid now.
Right.
Now we are totally off book. Like you're evolving into a being that has never existed. You know, what have you done in life? Merely awakened his pineal gland, you know, which then gives birth out of his head. Like we all have a secret penis inside our brain.
Yep.
That shoots out between our brain lobes out of a hole in our head.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
It is quite literally a third eye. Is how it appears when the tendril is not out. It is this suppurating, writhing hole in the center of his forehead, and his head generally has been kind of warped out of shape. Obviously, it's there to to house the prosthetics, but like it is like his brain, you know, is exceeding his brain pan almost.
Yeah. Yep.
So it gives him predator sight. He can, he can see stuff.
Infrared.
Yeah. And so Catherine at this point, you know, said, I don't care how horny it makes me, this resonator has got to go. She stops the resonator by, spraying it with a fire extinguisher to short it out. And, you know, this happens at, you know, in just enough time as Pretorius is reeling her in.
Yeah. Yep. As she is getting eaten. And when he sees the predator vision, he's like, oh, this is beautiful.
Yes.
You know, the idea is like, this is what you see when you're a Pretorius monster, basically. And it's like super cheesy visual effects. It's hard to imagine like, oh, this is the thing, you know, but it's for the time.
That's enough.
Maybe. Yeah. For the time. So the machine is dead and she is like sobbing. Yes. Like she has been driven mad a little bit. She's going to be even more driven mad.
Yeah.
In the end.
In my memory, this is where the movie ended.
Well, because she ends the same way.
Yeah.
Like she cackle laughs at the end of the actual movie too. But there's a whole third act here that is like fully off book and becomes like a different movie.
Yeah.
Like this becomes like a monster stalking movie.
Yep.
Because Crawford has been taken in to the hospital. Like she's getting read the riot act. Right. Like she brought this patient. She fucked him up. He's very sick. He's very, in trouble. They're checking out the weird opening in his head, which is like breathing
Yes.
A little bit. Super creepy.
Yeah.
And the detective is like, yeah, you know what? Like, you're arrested.
Yeah. Like,
you know,
crimes have happened here. She's very much in the same she's in the same position Crawford was at the beginning of the movie. You know, like just like Bubba's dead. I don't know how you could have done that, but like you are saying things that don't make sense. So like she's in custody. She's in the custody of Dr. Block, and Dr. Block goes full Nurse Ratched and orders electroshock therapy in the way that electroshock therapy works in movies, not in real life.
But yeah, go do it. Okay. Like, and it's very like disturbing when they're going to be doing it to Catherine, where she's like, please don't do this. Like,
well, she's speaking in a reasonable voice. Yeah,
I'm just talking, like, you don't electroshock somebody who's just like, please don't.
Yeah.
I feel like if you can say please don't, that's a good reason not to electroshock therapy somebody.
Yeah. And the movie version of ECT, real life version of ECT is like, I'm extremely depressed. Can this work? Yeah, that's one thing. Let's try it.
Yeah. Yep. So Crawford gets up, kind of stumbles down the hallway. He's very hungry.
Yeah.
And his sight leads him to the specimen container. And then there's like wonderful, creepy scene where like Block finds him in a room and he's eating brains out of this bucket. And she's like, Crawford, please don't eat those. Those will make you very sick. Like, she's trying to rationalize with him. And he just goes, they're delicious.
Yeah.
Like, it's so good. And then she's still trying to reason with him. And his proboscis comes out of his head. And then he sucks her fucking eyeball out.
Yeah.
He sucks her living brain out through her eye socket like a mummy.
Yeah. The motion that he does when he does this, again, sexualizing the violence or violencifying the sexual, it is like he is going to make out, but he hits the wrong hole.
Yeah. And it's his one move.
Yes.
It's like he does it multiple times in this movie, this like specific eyeball suck.
Yeah.
And you don't actually see the gore initially. You see like blood drip on the floor and stuff. You just kind of know what is happening.
Yeah.
And having somebody have their entire mouth over your eye is fucking disturbing as hell.
Yeah. It'd be very weird if it's at this point in the movie we started kink shaming.
Yeah, this is disgusting, dude.
Yeah. If like, having your eyes...
is this so gratuitous and horny?
Yeah. But this causes enough of a commotion that it draws most of the doctors away from Catherine before she can, successfully have electroshock done on her. She knocks out the final doctor with an exam light, gets up, steals a van, and drives away.
Yeah. And then while this is happening, Crawford, now hungry for brain, like wanders out. There's this little kind of, again, very 80s movie scene with a drunk homeless person who's getting the DTs.
Yeah.
These two EMTs, like character actor, kind of like, give me a candy bar. I'm hungry. Like, it's almost like, hey, improv some stuff.
Yeah.
So it felt a little bit to me. But Crawford eats one of the EMTs while the drunk watches.
Yeah.
The drunk is like, there's a snake man. Yeah. I saw the snake man, which is what he calls Crawford.
Yeah.
Because he's got that penis coming out of his brain.
Right. The only thing this scene is missing is the homeless man like looking at Crawford doing this, throwing his bottle down. Never again.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a pink elephant massage the breast of a woman with a 5-fingered trunk and then finger her with his like 3-lobed eye.
Yeah.
It's like a very disturbing version of
you gotta lay off the sauce.
Yep.
Ugh. So everything must return to the house. So Catherine at this point has somehow gotten a bunch of dynamite and taped an NES to it.
It was dynamite that was probably in the ambulance.
Yeah,
like it's like medical dynamite for like dynamiting off tumors and stuff.
Yeah, it's medical grade dynamite.
Yeah, medical grade. Like it came in a little like paper wrapper. Yeah. Each individual tube. So she's gonna blow up the house. She's actually, she's broke good.
Yes.
She's gonna do the thing that needs to be done.
Yeah.
At this point. So the machine turns on. Like as she arrives, Crawford arrives. And like gets the drop on her, chains her up.
Yes.
Inside the BDSM room, like uses straps on her and straps her up in the sexy room. And it's just like, I love you. Like he's confused and totally out of it at this point and just kind of being controlled, like piloted by this brain boner.
Yeah. And he moves to suck out her eye, but she counters and she bites off his pineal stalk.
And somehow it gives you the cringe, like it's actually a body part that you would be losing. Like, it's like, man, that looks like it fucking hurts.
Yeah.
Like and he's screaming, you know, he's really, really upset.
Yeah.
But this kind of wakes him up.
Yes.
Because, now Crawford is okay, and can fight back because Pretorius shows up.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Up in the attic again, where Pretorius has kind of been bound. And Pretorius is again trying to make his pitch, talking about the great essential desire is to know the pleasure of another's mind, and this brings out a little bit of the characterization for Pretorius, because Crawford fires back, "I know your desires, you impotent pig." He's impotent, like actually, like just cannot achieve an erection, and so he has manifested all of this domination behavior because that is the way that he expresses the power side of sex. And this transformation has been a way for him to manifest that physically.
Like, if I can't get a boner, what if my entire body was a boner?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can't buy a boner, be a boner.
Yeah.
Dress
for the boner you want to be.
Dress for the boner you want, not the boner you have. So he transforms into another like slime beast thing, this like flying thing, and flies forward and bites Crawford's head off.
I love
presumably what happened to him.
Yeah. I love the twisting that happens here. Like, you see his neck being twisted and elongated as the head is ripped off. It cuts away before you see the final decapitation. But it's just the barest discretion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So Catherine hasn't been up here.
Right.
She's still down in the BDSM room, but because the machine is turned on, the eels show up, and she kind of like, the eels can only see you if you move. Similar, we didn't mention that earlier, but it's similar to T-Rexes. So she kind of moves her wrist to trick the eels into biting off the straps, which is like a fun little bit.
Yeah.
Which I like. And then she distracts them by throwing a matchbook because they're attracted to movement. Runs down the stairs, runs into Crawford's dead body, as the house is flooding from the attic. So like, from this other dimension, some kind of liquid is precursoring this, like the big bad that's coming, I guess. Yes. Pretty creepy. And then this happens.
Yeah. So
she runs upstairs to where the flooding has happened, and then we are in our climax here, which is fucking incredible.
Yeah. Pretorius is here, and he is ready to enact this final predation. However, because of the act of consumption, whatever it is not just being piloted by the personality of Pretorius. You got a Crawford in the mix too. And so Crawford, his body, kind of emerges. It erupts again, as if in birth, from the side of Pretorius's body. And he tells her to run as Crawford / Pretorius / it struggle with it / themselves and tear the body apart
from the inside of it.
Yes.
So like, visually, this is a grotesque rubber monster that Jeffrey Combs is in, pushing his way, breaking the flesh to crawl out of it.
Right.
Wet and terrifying looking, and just like really, really great. And they show a lot of it. Like, again, Stuart Gordon shows the monster, like that's his philosophy, but it looks good. Like, it looks very scary and creepy, even when it's obviously like Ed Wood style, like Jeffrey Combs, like just wrestling with an empty suit. There's no animatronics with it or anything like that. It actually looks really scary. And the secret ingredient is Vaseline. Like, I think just the fact that everything is coated with petroleum jelly just makes it look extra scary. Yeah. Of course, other dimensional like terrors are greasy.
Yeah.
So, absolutely love this. She had lit the dynamite at some point, and while this is happening, she jumps out of the window as the bomb is running out, like runs away from the explosion. She falls, she breaks her leg in an incredibly gruesome way, like compound fractures her knee. And the neighbors show up, including that nosy lady.
Yeah.
And see what's happening. She's like, "Oh my God, what is that? What's happening?" and stuff. And all she can say in her terror voice is, "It ate him." And she starts crying and then turns to laughing as she has been driven mad.
Yes.
So very similar to From Beyond, like the machine is destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
One person made it who is driven mad.
Yes.
It's just they added a lot of middle,
mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So.
And so like, this is not it is hard to call this a bad adaptation because there is so little there. When I think about it, like it is a much better adaptation than say Castle Freak is.
I have not seen Castle Freak.
Yeah.
So
I mean, just like it's just about an entirely different thing, pretty much. You know, it is an adaptation in name only of The Outsider, really. But this, it has the elements. It just tells a different story with the same parts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And adds a lot, and what they add is fun and out there.
Yeah.
You know, so like the same story, you know, we're hitting all the same beats. The places in between are just filled in with like unpredictable bonkers shit,
mm-hmm.
which is I want. And the biggest addition, which is the whole Crawford creature.
Yeah.
Like that whole bit, the scene in the hospital, or a couple scenes in the hospital, all of that stuff is such like a marvelous addition. It's such a creepy, good thing.
Just him hunched over the bucket of brains and turning to look slowly over his shoulder.
And just the delivery and everything too. Yeah. And I love that everything about that scene. Like that can make you very sick. Like just that very rational, like, hey, like, don't do that, champ. You know?
You ever heard of prions?
Yeah, buddy. Like this is not great. And then just be like, it's good.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just really, really wonderful.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Like
love it so much.
This movie it's a fucking spectacle.
Yeah. Yep. Spectacle. It's short. It's like an hour and 20 minutes,
mm-hmm.
you know, so it goes by very quickly. You know, it's not a terrible adaptation. It's not a perfect adaptation, but it is of that flavor of Lovecraft of being like fucking out there.
Yeah.
Like similar, you know, we're like more lurid and kind of more disgusting than In the Mouth of Madness.
Yeah.
But I like both of these movies like quite a bit for different reasons.
Yeah.
Like this is harder to take seriously, but also like a lot more visceral.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the climax of this, like all of the body horror, all of the actual injury in this affects my stomach a lot more.
Yeah.
You know, than just my brain. Like it hits different parts.
Yeah. Like
which is valuable.
In the Mouth of Madness is more, it is far more cerebral than this is, but also structurally it's kind of a mess, right?
Yeah. Yep.
This is incredibly well paced. It never feels like it drags, and it is very tight structurally, even when it gets into this coda that, you know, I kind of forgot, but is a different kind of movie in its own regard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for listening.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for patronizing. We appreciate it. You and I, Cole, have not talked about what we plan to do next.
Do you want to take an edit break and talk about it so we can announce it?
Yeah, let me look over at my shelf of Lovecraft adaptations real quick.
Okay, we're back from the edit break. You probably didn't hear a break there. We've decided what we're going to do next. Gary, what are we doing?
We're going to do the 1970 film The Dunwich Horror.
Yeah. This has Dean Stockwell in it, directed by Roger Corman.
Yep. So it's going to have a little bit of that kind of gonzo energy that this has, but a 70s version of it.
Yes.
You know, as opposed to an 80s version of it. Mm-hmm. And I've never seen it before.
Yeah.
So it's like the first thing we've done for this that I've never seen other than those TV shows. Mm-hmm. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be very good.
Yeah. It has a very bad Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
So we will see. I am looking forward to revisiting the Dunwich Horror as well. Just the story itself.
A great story.
Yeah.
So thanks everybody for listening. We don't have a whole lot of admin for you. Just we appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
And also a couple of people have written in suggestions for things. We have like a big list of things. We may end up doing some suggestions at some point. We don't know exactly how long this series will run for.
Yeah.
And that will kind of depend on what we'll do. The big one that came up a lot is Annihilation, which I've never seen and would like to see. So like, that's an easy sell for me. Mm-hmm. But I don't know when. We've got a lot of things that are a little bit more traditionally, adaptations first. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, Annihilation is a movie that I would like to see that has been brought up specifically in relation to Roadside Picnic as well.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So go ahead and keep sending suggestions. I just have no idea when we'll get to them.
Yeah.
And then doing the show once a month, it's got kind of a slower pace. So, the Dunwich Horror next month. Mm-hmm. And until next time, may your brain lack the ability to correlate the contents.
Umbasa.
Umbasa.